South China Morning Post, 18th of July 2023, Why does India achieve strategic autonomy but France fails, claims China. China is launching a charm offensive as part of its strategy to divide and rule the world against India. Narendra Modi spoke to a joint session of the U.S. Congress less than a month ago, and not for the first time. Last week, he received the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor, the country's highest honor, on Bastille Day while serving as the special guest in the military parade honoring France's National Day. It would still be an understatement to suggest that the Indian Prime Minister has landed in the loveliest situation. He is currently the most successful politician in the world, whether you love or detest him. Even when he misbehaves, he still gets what he wants when he wants it. Kashmir and Jammu? Islamist rights? Hindutva? Who gives a damn? Except if you're a Muslim or a member of a human rights NGO. Amazingly, he has maintained his distance from everyone and refuses to play nice. He continues to buy cheap oil and gas from the Russians and won't criticize them for their actions in Ukraine. The West is still required to kiss up to him, though. At every opportunity, Western officials have denounced China for supporting Russia's economy and refusing to condemn it. Leaders of the East and West have been busy courting him or going out of their way to avoid upsetting New Delhi, from Moscow to Beijing and Paris to Washington. So why are they all attempting to eat from his hand? Comparing Modi to Emmanuel Macron, standing next to him last Friday on Bastille Day, may make this unusual occurrence easier to comprehend. The two men's political outcomes could not be more dissimilar. The French president is despised at home, and he is ignored or mocked in Brussels and Washington. But the same or a similar formula, strategic autonomy, is at the core of the foreign strategies of both nations. What's going on with France, then? Clearly, not all strategies for strategic autonomy are the same. One version is succeeding, while the other is failing miserably. However, both have similar historical precedents and have the same objectives in terms of modern international politics. Modi and Macron to Nehru and de Gaulle. General Charles de Gaulle had made grandeur the cornerstone of French foreign policy, which is why every French president has to sound like a Gaullist even when he is not. It's similar to how each U.S. president and presidential candidate must proclaim that the U.S. is the greatest country in the world. Other terms like autonomy, sovereignty, grand strategy, or strategic autonomy flow from grandeur. In essence, they say France must act like a significant power even though it is not. Due to the United States allegedly enjoying exorbitant privilege under its gold standard, Gaullist France developed its unique nuclear deterrent, assisted in the death of the Bretton Woods system of fixed exchange rates. It withdrew from NATO's command structure in 1966, but crucially not its membership. In 2009, it rejoined the NATO command. Whatever later defined strategic independence or autonomy meant, it included rejecting U.S. leadership, whether through NATO or, more broadly, its Atlanticism versus Soviet communism, at least verbally. Following a visit to Beijing in April, Macron stirred some debate by cautioning Europe against being embroiled in a dispute between the US and China over Taiwan and saying that supporting the US did not equate to being its vassal. By channeling de Gaulle's spirit, he defined strategic autonomy as a philosophy with historical precedent. What he said undoubtedly made perfect sense to those in the global south, but it infuriated Americans and Europeans, especially those in the Baltics and Central Europe, to no end. He disallowed NATO from establishing a liaison office in Tokyo this month by raising concerns about the organization's influence in Asia. The ironic thing is that, despite Macron's rhetoric, France has been doing exactly what every good and well-trained member of NATO and the EU has been expected to do: follow Washington's lead against Russia, give Ukraine weapons and aid, and permit its citizens to experience economic hardship and its economy to suffer significantly as a result of the war's consequences. Despite doing his part, Macron still comes across as a naughty kid or, even worse, a foolish boy. Strategic autonomy is a term I'm not sure Jawaharlal Nehru ever used. He preferred non-alignment. He was also a significant supporter of sovereignty as the head of a former colonized people. It meant avoiding following a single hegemon like the US during its brief unipolar period or two superpowers in a bipolar world during the Cold War for his successors. Subramaniam Jaishankar, Modi's incredibly astute foreign minister, responded to a question about why India wouldn't join the West in denouncing Russia with a one-liner that could be read as a brief explanation of strategic autonomy. India is not sitting on the fence, but it is entitled to have its side. French colonization of India or French vassalage? India has always been friendly with Russia and was close to the USSR. Russia, followed by France, was India's top weaponry supplier until the Ukraine conflict. Paris and Washington are making every effort to make room for Modi's declaration that New Delhi is prepared to diversify its weapons supplies. Large armament sales are anticipated from Modi's most recent trip to France. U.S. defense officials have suggested that they are open to giving India access to advanced weaponry so that the country might develop its indigenous military sector. India may always act as though it has much to offer while maintaining a distance as a traditional swing state as long as the West wants a competitive relationship with China. Beijing has every reason to work toward improving ties with New Delhi to dismantle the quadrilateral security dialogue, often known as the Quad, involving Australia, India, Japan, and the US, and stop it from becoming a source of friction at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Shouldn't Beijing alter its allegiance from Pakistan, a perpetually failing state, to India, a la Kissinger and Nixon, to do a Taiwan? Unfortunately, that bridge is too far due to their long-standing border dispute in the Himalayas. Then there is the conflict over ideologies. India and China competed to be the third world's non-aligned leaders then, as they do now in the region known as the Global South. However, the debate is less about the authoritarian regimes of China and India than about the rise of nationalistic authoritarianism in India under Modi. India may ignore China while being coy with the West. However, France is compelled to continue being a member of the EU and NATO. Vladimir Putin may have been able to damage Europe's position as what Macron has referred to as an independent third pole by presenting it to the US on a silver platter. It may turn out to be exactly like one, notwithstanding a nation's fiercest protestations that it is not a vassal state. If it does participate in the conflict with a dominant China.